Woodwork with no nasty dust or dust extractors or anything like that. Yes, I'm talking about green woodwork, so no sawdust, and there's a fairly good supply of timber around. Logs. I do a lot of woodwork where I work with wood straight from the tree. And what I thought I'd do, I'll put a little series of films up here where I'll show you some of the techniques I use and some of the bits of equipment I've made. And I'm going to be making something which I'll talk more about later, but it's something actually very small and very fine in this particular case, but it illustrates everything about green woodwork beautifully. So I have got some cutting to do. I want a nice rough saw for this. So I've got this little silky saw here, and I'm going to cut some sections off this log. So at the moment I'm cutting some small wood components. Not got a great bit of space to hold on to with it. These saws go through very quickly, they're very good. If you get the kind for green wood, they have a sort of coarser tooth configuration and the blade itself is taper ground, so it doesn't stick as you saw, but it's very effective. So I'm just marking up this wood with little 1/2 inch squares, and that's because in a minute I'm going to chop it into little like square blocks. The beauty of working with green wood is if you have, some friendly tree contractors or something, or you have a bit of land or whatever, you can get hold of some wood. There's often people who are very kind. If you belong to, in the UK, an association called the Association of Pole Lathe Turners and Green Woodworkers, has about 1,000+ members, and there'll be local groups in your county, but you can meet up with them, and they all work with green wood, and sometimes you'll get someone who will very generously give you some wood to use or get you some at a discount or something. But yeah, I mean, you can get firewood, use that. Well, having marked out my little grid squares, I'm now going to cut this, and I'm not going to use a saw. This is green woodwork. I have something called a froe, which is simply a bit of car spring attached to a pole, but it's very good for this sort of thing. I have my wooden mallet, which of course again I haven't bought, it's just like a club, but I can just take little bits off of this. It'll be fairly crude, it doesn't matter. What I should do actually is tie around it first. I'll just get a little bit of something to keep all of these together, otherwise they'll explode. But this bit of bootlace will do it. And then as I cut these, I'll be careful not to go down and cut the lace. And it should hopefully just be enough to hold them and stop them all flying literally everywhere. The cutting can be quite crude at this stage, so I'm not particularly worried if I don't hit every square, because I'm reckoning there'll be quite a bit of wastage one way and the other. But that doesn't particularly matter because I can just simply burn it, keep warm. Yeah, quite an effective way here. I mean, you think if you're using a saw, and this is one of the things I like about green woodwork, you can just go out, find your wood, and then you can cut it without any sawdust. And if you're someone who perhaps suffers a bit with sawdust, I do, it's very nice to be able to do this. This reminds me of the video with John making shingles, which you may have seen. Just on a smaller scale. Plus John was being very skillful in using the grain direction. I'm just hacking through these on the basis that it's quicker than trying to work out in this situation what might or might not work grain wise, and I think on such a small item it actually wouldn't be terribly significant. There we are. So that gives me a nice little, like a cake, isn't it? A lot of it gets discarded, but hopefully in here I will get a few bits of wood which I can further trim and refine. Some are more square than others, so as I get into the centre a bit more away from these edges, I think there'll be more usable pieces. They're all going to have a clean up with another tool I have called a drawer knife. So I now have quite a lot of these little birch fingers of wood. Some are leg length, some are arm length. And the kind of doll I'm going to be making, they're very popular in Victorian times, and they're sometimes called Dutch dolls or Grodnertal dolls or even penny dolls. And there was a whole sort of industry, mainly across Europe and Austria, in the Grodnertal Valley, or the Grodner Valley I should say, because Tal is valley in Austrian, so the Grodner Valley. And there used to be lots of people making these dolls. I'll get a picture actually just to show you. So that's what they look like. They're quite crudely made and about a foot high roughly. I haven't actually got one myself. These two here are ones my sister kindly photographed for me. But so I am working off photographs. Ideally I'd have an actual doll to make it with. But I thought, yeah, it's a nice little challenge. It's a fairly small, delicate bit of work to do. And it's something I feel I can show all the bits of green woodworking, so I'll be shaving the legs and arms next. This is weird, it's some of the sort of terminology I'm using here. Yeah, so I'll be shaving them with a drawer knife, just to get them a bit more round. There'll be some jointing to be done, and obviously some pole lathe work to turn the body, the main round head, and the actual body of the doll. It's all done on a lathe. There you are, a little introduction to green woodworking. In the next video I'm going to be shaving those arms and legs into round shapes, and I'll be doing that on my spoon mule, which is a holding device often used by people who carve wooden spoons. And I'll again talk a little bit about both, what I'm doing and also about green woodwork more generally. But as you can see, I've got a supply of wood, which hasn't exactly cost much and should be plentiful, in your area, unless you live in a desert. And you can, cut it up, etc., without making lots of noise, not needing lots of expensive saws or anything, and not making any dust. And it's the not making dust that I really like about all of this. But also, I'm out here in birdsong. It's lovely, out in the fresh air. If you don't have a shed, you can still do woodwork. In fact, you could just put a tarpaulin over an area like a yard and have a very nice rainproof workshop. So yeah, I'll do rounding legs next, and then I'll do probably the body on the pole lathe. And then of course I've got to joint the whole thing together, which will be quite an entertainment in itself. Okay, see you in the next video, and if you want to see the next lot, please subscribe. Bye bye then.